My name is Michelle Bruncks, and I'm a nutritional counselor. I run Mistletoe Nutrition and Wellness, and I have advanced training in cancer and nutrigenomics. How did I come to this field is a question that I'm asked fairly often. And like most practitioners, I was my first case study. So I have my own cancer story. I was only 29 and I was an extremely healthy individual. I've been cycling every day as a commuter for 10 plus years. Just looking at me, you'd think this person is the picture of health. And I was just working at my computer one day and I had a really massive seizure that took me down to the ground, and I couldn't move my arms or legs. I was stuck there. And we eventually figured out that I had a brain tumor. And I was given my plan of surgery and chemotherapy, radiation, all the things. We had our plan set. But I was, this young person, and I'm like, this is awful. Surely I have to be doing something as well to improve my circumstances. I need to be an active participant in this plan that we have together. And I was really disappointed by what I was told. I was told that I didn't have a lot of agency in the situation, and that as far as food was concerned, because that was one thing I asked about, they said, you just need to keep your protein levels up, and let's have you eat a bunch of red meat and protein powders, and that'll keep you good. And if that doesn't work, we have Ensure in the lobby. So as even a completely uninformed patient, I thought, that feels wrong. That feels really wrong. And so I went home and started doing some of my own research. And because I'd had this seizure, I wasn't able to work at the time. I started doing a lot of research and realized that this is something I was very passionate about, and I should go back to school because I wanted to be the resource and advocate that I didn't have as a patient. So I, let's see, what do I want to say? Yes, I went back to school. So I studied holistic nutrition and then oncology nutrition and nutrigenomics. And nutrigenomics is an emerging field in the last 20 or so years, which I'll tell you about a little more later. But the biggest takeaway from my education was that cancer is a metabolic disease, and that's very different than the story that's out there about how someone gets cancer. But this is actually something that develops over time, and we know quite a bit about what takes a healthy cell to an abnormal cell to a cancerous cell. And it's actually been around for quite a while. A paper came out about the 10 hallmarks of cancer. And so this refers to what is unique to a cancerous cell that makes it react differently and not die off as it should, and then proliferate throughout the body. So what are the interesting unique things to that kind of abnormal cell that change the biology of that cell? So we've learned that it is a metabolic disease, which I find very empowering. I don't know if you do, but to learn that this is actually something that is quite malleable and something that we have a lot of influence over throughout our lives, of whether or not this is something that develops. Because up to 85% of cancers, 85% of all cancers can be linked back to diet and lifestyle choices and environmental exposures. And so that leaves a very small percentage left over that are actually genetically influenced, like an expressing BRCA gene for breast cancer or other oncogenes related to thyroid cancer. So to me, that's great news to hear. I don't know if that feels nice to anybody else in the room, but to know that there is so much that can be within your control. And we also know that nutrition actually is very important to all conditions and diseases, including cancer, because food is not just calories, something in and out, it's also information. It is the information needed by your cells to recreate themselves in a healthy way, or to say, we are no longer a healthy cell anymore, we need to die off, in a process called apoptosis. So when I talk about so nutrition is important. When I talk about cancer nutrition, I think the most commonly misunderstood thing is like, who is this for? Because if you hear cancer nutrition and you don't have a diagnosis, you might think, well, that's really cool, but that doesn't apply to me because I don't have cancer. But if this is a metabolic disease, then this is something that evolves over time. And so your health history, the things that you've been exposed to, and the habits and the choices that you make today affect whether or not that can happen in the future. Mm-hmm. So I think that this specialty should be renamed and called anti-cancer nutrition, because it absolutely applies to everyone. Yeah. And on the flip side of that, if you are a person who unfortunately already has a cancer diagnosis, then we do need to look at the roots of why this happened, because if you go through your whole plan, that's great, you do your surgery, your chemo, your radiation, you're the best patient. But if you don't change the environment in which cancer was allowed to grow, you're not addressing a key factor of its creation, and the situation that you're currently in. So nutrigenomics, I mentioned I would talk about this. Nutrigenomics is an emerging field, but it is being used in the prevention and management of many diseases. It is how our genetic variants, so things that actually, mutations that take place after birth, affect the way that we interact with and absorb and use nutrients, our sensitivity or resistance to environmental toxins. Exercise also influences genetic variants. So knowing about those specific mutations or variants within a person can give us a lot of information about what kind of diet that person should be on, what kind of supplements they might need if diet isn't enough. And it's also important to know for someone who has cancer, because there are genes that affect DNA repair and antioxidant supply, among many, many others. But the genetics portion of it does apply to everyone, regardless of whether or not they have cancer, because it would be really nice, right, to know whether or not the Mediterranean diet or the vegan diet or all these things, like the fad diet, is that right for me? Well, it might be, but you also might not genetically fit that model very well. And so you may be doing all the right things, but you don't thrive in that situation. So it's a very interesting take on personalized nutrition in that way. So that is a piece I like to bring in, if people can, if that's within budget, to be part of their information that we analyze when we're making a plan together. Okay, so I've mentioned cancer a lot, but I haven't really broken it up into the two groups that I work with, which is, I call them my holistic nutrition clients and my oncology nutrition clients. And the genetics come in either way if people are interested in having that. It's not a requirement. I also do one-off sessions for people who are just interested in the genetics portion of it, so they can learn like how they want to customize their diet. So for the folks that are in the oncology group, that can be someone who's in active treatment, or it can be someone who has been in remission for years. It's at any stage of the cancer survivorship. Because once again, you do need to look at the roots of why this happened so that we can hopefully prevent it from ever happening again. And one of the assessments that we use is called the Terrain 10. And it's assessing these key parts of our internal bodily and emotional terrain, which all contribute to either a anti-cancer or a pro-cancerous state. And some of those are blood sugar balance, microbiome, hormone balance, mental emotional health, stress and biorhythms. And so those are all things that I look at with someone. And when someone is in active treatment, I look at, what are the things influencing their specific situation, what phase of treatment are they at, and how can I support them? So often that is with weight management. It really is important to have someone on your team who can help you out, because there's a lot to remember during that time. If you're in the treatment, you're experiencing severe brain fog, and you probably can't keep all that information in your mind. So just having somebody who's taking detailed notes and checking in, saying like, hey, last week when we talked, you said you were experiencing this metallic taste in your mouth. Is that still happening? Or, when you get further down the path of like, you've done your treatments for a while, and having me look back and say, hey, remember when you were here? Look where you are now. Just having somebody walk beside you can be really helpful. And then the holistic folks that those ones I work with, I often see chronic undefined gut issues. That's the most common thing that I see. I learn a lot just from that initial discovery call with people. They talk about their symptoms, and I hear over and over again things I'm like, that's not normal. That's not normal. It's normal for you, but it's become your normal. And so I'm very happy to get those folks so that they don't go from discomfort to disease, whatever that ends up being. And so, I look at all the different things that they're experiencing and then tailor it specifically to them of how we can improve each body system that seems to be not at its optimal function. And we also talk a lot about environmental exposures and how to decrease those, because it's a lot to keep track of, but and it all feels very scary and overwhelming. I know people ask me can I drink my tap water? I'm like, no. Filter that. And I sometimes feel like the boogeyman, but I just I don't intend to strike fear. I intend to shine a light on what's there and what just has to have a little strategy around it. It's like we can live in a healthier world. We just have to know about it, what is unhealthy first. It's like one very simple change that I tell people about. It's like, you probably went to the grocery store recently and you probably bought something that came in a glass jar. Save that glass jar. Get rid of one of your plastic containers. You didn't spend any money on that extra. That's great. You used glass instead of plastic. Or just eating one meal at home that you made from scratch. That's a great first start. We all have to start somewhere. But with either of these groups of people, holistic or oncology, mainly I'm teaching people how to take care of themselves and reconnect with their bodies and find a better place of balance and comfort. And so how am I doing? 12 minutes, all right. So what does this actually look like when I'm working with someone? I think I've gone a little into the details already, but when I'm working with a new person, it always starts with a discovery call, because I want to know about you. Like, how are we going to fit? Are you going to benefit from this? How much support do you need? And I learn a lot from that first call. And if you decide that we're a good fit and you want to work together, then move on to the health assessment phase, which looks slightly different, whether or not you are oncology or holistic nutrition, but similar. And that involves a really in-depth questionnaire and health history, including the Terrain 10 that I mentioned. And I always have people do 4 days of a food and mood journal, and this is really telling. As soon as not to criticize anybody, it's like it's all on paper, but it shows patterns really clearly of what do people habitually do, where are they missing nutrients or eating something each day that is normal for them, but I'm like, oh, that's what's causing the discomfort right there, and you just eat it every day and you don't think about it. So the journal is really, really helpful. And then from there, we kind of decide whether or not genetics should come into play, whether we need more functional lab testing to get more clarity on some issues. And then if the person I'm working with has cancer, then we look at everything that's come from their care team so far. What type do they have? What subtype do they have? Do we have any information about genetic variants within the biopsy that was done? Like, we get really into the weeds. And I'm giving recommendations based on that specific type of cancer's risk factors, and then also their personal risk factors. And when someone's in active treatment, they're also using chemotherapy agents at the time. And so I'm not only assisting them as a nutritionist, but also as a dedicated researcher, because once I know all the factors of this person's case, I'm a very good person to be looking for information for you. And I've been able to find papers that are like, there's a lot of evidence for chemotherapy synergists or complementary therapies that improve the efficacy of these chemotherapy treatments. So if you're going to have to go through the treatment, you really want to get the most out of it, right? And if there's an agent out there that is well researched and you get the sign off from your oncologist, who I'm always speaking to, then let's definitely try that, right? So that is always part of the conversation when it's about cancer. So from all this information that I've gathered from this person, I create a very personalized protocol, which has 3 to 5 phases depending on the person. And sometimes it kind of looks like this with the visual at the beginning to say, like, here's where we're going to start, and these are the bullet points of each phase, and we're not going to move on until you're ready. And then I'm with them every step of the way. But I often give a visual like that because it's helpful for people to keep track of where they're at and where we're going. And after we've figured out the rough draft of this kind of protocol, we have our 90-minute new client session where we go through it, and they get to give me all their feedback. So this isn't final, this is a collaboration. I want to hear what they have to say about the plan going forward and their commitment to it. And then we finalize that. And then we get off and running with those changes and that protocol. Yeah, and so that's how everybody goes through my process. But yeah, I am now offering 3 or 6 month memberships after that health assessment, which are just different number of follow-up sessions, but it's really helpful to have access to me so that we can talk through things, because if you get all this information and you know what you have to do, sometimes that's not enough to get you started. You really need someone to hold your hand, and that's fine. I'm very happy to do that. And also during that time period, whatever membership you choose, you have access to me via like a HIPAA compliant chat, which many people use. I'm very happy they do as symptoms arise or things change with the protocol, and you need to say, oh, I didn't like that recipe you gave me, or just even something like that. And the protocol that I give people has those steps, and it also has targeted nutrients that they need to be getting more of, and recipes that have those that I've created that help them actually get those things into their body instead of just like, where do I get choline from? Like, yeah, so that is my memberships. Yeah, and I have like some action steps for you guys. That's helpful. And then that's where I'll end. So I don't just want to scare everybody. I want to give you some things to do today. So one thing I highly recommend that everybody does is there is a tracking app called Chronometer, which is free. And I do recommend that people track what they eat, drink, supplements they take, all that stuff for at least a few days. It really gives a lot of information. It gives you a report each day about nutrients that you got, how much of what you ate was carbs, fats, proteins, because most of the folks who follow a Western diet or just grew up in the Western diet culture, a lot of us eat a lot of carbs, majority carbs, we also eat a lot of sugar because it's just in stuff, because it sells well. So there's just sugar and stuff. So once you like get those hard numbers, you say, ooh, wow, I eat a lot of sugar every day. And you can use that data to kind of adjust things a little bit. It shows you exactly what meals those are coming from as well. The second thing is evaluate your fats and your oils. So inflammation is a big issue in this country. It is a contributor to the severity of a lot of diseases as well. And so just looking at what you have in your cabinet, is it a vegetable oil? Is it a seed oil? Maybe don't use those anymore. Because we definitely need more omega-3 fatty acids than 6. 6 have their use, but we have a lot of sources of omega-6s and just packaged foods, things that we eat all the time. And so that ratio gets really out of whack. And the more omega-6s you have, the more you're in a pro-inflammatory state. And the last one is one that people hear all the time, but go organic and get a water filter. I don't know about you, but if I have to pay for food, I would rather pay for a nutrient-dense vegetable than pesticides and disease and a lack of health, because that is really what you're buying. Non-organic foods have tons of pesticides. They have the top 5 used in our country are banned in a lot of other countries. Glyphosate is sprayed on almost everything, which is Roundup. If anybody knew that. And Roundup has been implicated in a lot of the surge in autoimmunity and gut issues. And so it really does matter if you have an organic food versus inorganic. But I know that that's inaccessible for a lot of people. Like, the cost is prohibitive. So if you go to the Environmental Working Group website, they have what's called the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. And the Dirty Dozen is the non-organic foods that have the most pesticide residues. Clean 15 are the ones that are non-organic, have the least pesticide residues. So that's a good place to start if this is out of budget for you, which it is for most people. And water filters kind of go Brita, it's pretty good. Berkey, much better. Reverse osmosis with remineralization, best. So yeah, those are my 3. And thank you for listening.